Hey guys, Oneforthemoney here, back with another video. Today, I'm really sorry I'm not going to have to be able to do much editing for this video or have a lot of practice or a lot of showing different videos or highlights just because this is being filmed about 25 minutes before the draft and I did want to get some reaction of the trades that have gone down so far and get that out to you guys. So, I'm only going to do the two trades that impacted directly the Oklahoma City Thunder. That I believe happened about 2 days ago on the day I'm recording this, and that was the Dennis Schroeder trade, as well as the Chris Paul trade. So first I'm going to start with the Dennis Schroeder trade. I think that the Dennis Schroeder trade, Dennis Schroeder, if you don't know, was a top 3 Sixth Man of the Year candidate last year. He averaged probably about 18 points and 6 assists. He was a really good player, and he had probably his best season in OKC last year. And the Lakers traded Danny Green, who infamously missed a three-pointer in Game 5 of the NBA Finals, but not all their fault. And the fact that they got death threats that were kind of mind-boggling. It was kind of unacceptable as a society that we got there. But nevertheless, the Lakers traded a first-round pick and Danny Green for Dennis Schroeder. Now, from the Lakers' perspective, as I am a pretty big Lakers fan, I think that it was a pretty good trade for us because we're trying to win now. We're not going to need the first-round picks, but we're also gaining Dennis Schroeder, who is a really good scorer. And even though we are losing a certain amount of defense from Danny Green, because he was a good defender no matter how good of a shooter he was or how good of an offensive player he was still a really great defender for us in the playoffs and through the regular season. So I think that definitely, and Dennis Schroeder is not such a good defender. He's average, is nothing too special. And I think that that's the only probably downgrade of this trade. But I think that for the Lakers, they're trying to get a ball handler and someone else who can score, and Dennis Schroeder can definitely be one of those players. From the Oklahoma City Thunder perspective, I get it, but a little less. First, I do get that they wanted Danny Green because in the way that they're going with, they're building around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and potentially Steven Adams. I think that their future looks very bright, and I think that Danny Green can not only mentor those younger players that they have in their core, but also add to a playoff contention team as the Oklahoma City Thunder want to be. So I think that Danny Green, because he is a 3-and-D wing, and he is not a scrub, he's not a bona fide scrub, he's not Kwame Brown. He is a legitimate NBA player. And I think that Danny Green will just help the Oklahoma City Thunder. What is a little appalling for me as the Oklahoma City Thunder is that Danny Green is making $15 million next year, and I think that they wouldn't want a bad contract like that because Danny Green did not play up to his contract. I'm sorry, Danny, but you do not, especially in the playoffs. But I believe that since it is only a 1-year deal and the Thunder can just let him go and they're not going to be able to keep that money on the books, it's going to be a good trade for the Thunder. I also have heard the Thunder have gotten finessed. However, Danny Green is still a player, as I said, and also they really value their first-round picks. If you do remember, last year they traded for Russell Westbrook and got traded Russell Westbrook and Paul George and accumulated a multitude of first-round picks, and they're just adding that so they can get better assets to even make a big splash, whether it's attracting someone from free agency because of how smart their GM looks, Sam Presti looks, or even getting a blockbuster trade in the next few years using those future picks to sweeten up the pot of the deal. Now, the second deal that happened was a Chris Paul trade to the Phoenix Suns. And I think that this was also I think it was also a good trade for the team that got the better player, but also a little bit of worse trade for the team that didn't. So, Chris Paul, if you didn't know, actually, I believe was pretty high in MVP voting. He was a stellar player in the playoffs. He was one of the best closers in the NBA last season. Some might even say the best. And he is he's an amazing passer, I would say he's the number 1 passer in the NBA right now. I think that he's a top point guard, a top defensive point guard. And so, by my descriptions, you might be wondering, well, why would the Oklahoma City Thunder trade him? Well, about 2 or 3 years ago, Chris Paul actually signed a deal for about $38 to $43 million, a year for the Rockets. And then he was traded to the Thunder, and the the aforementioned Russell Westbrook trade. And so the Thunder probably didn't want to have that contract on the books, gather up the future assets, as I said, and because I think that the Thunder got what they wanted from the mentorship and the leadership of Chris Paul in this season, especially as you've seen, they went to Game 7 against the Houston Rockets, who were a formidable team. While they didn't have too big of a role in the playoffs, they were a formidable team. And I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder really blossomed this year. And Chris Paul's legacy and Chris Paul's impact will sustain throughout their culture and throughout the rest of their future and how the rest of their near future. Also, if you don't know, the main pieces of the trade were Chris Paul for Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, a first-round pick, Ty Jerome and Jalen LeCue. And obviously the Suns got Chris Paul and Abdel Nader, who is not a very significant NBA player. Well, he is formidable. He has gotten a certain number of points. And he's not bad. But he's not definitely someone that was the highlight of the trade. So I think that for the Suns' perspective, I think that that's very good. I think that they want to capitalize on Devin Booker, and especially because we don't know how long he's going to sustain this. I think that he will get better, but at some point he will cap off. If you didn't know that the Phoenix Suns went undefeated in the NBA bubble this year, where they won 8 games straight and contended for the playoffs, when in reality, before the bubble even started, people immediately counted them out for making the playoffs. So the fact that they showed any heart there was really significant, and also that they pushed themselves to all the way to their full limitations. That is very admirable, and they did a great job. So shout out to the Phoenix Suns. And so I think that they just wanted that piece to get over the top. While they might not be championship contenders, they can definitely contend for a top 4 seed, or at least a top 6 seed in the West, which is pretty good, knowing that the Los Angeles teams, the Golden State Warriors, and the Denver Nuggets are all championship contenders for the next season. So I think that the Suns really want to capitalize on Devin Booker and also make him stay, because there had been certain rumors of Devin Booker wanting out of Phoenix because they weren't winning. And I think that after having that bubble where he experienced winning, and this year after getting Chris Paul, he's just going to he's going to want to stay in Phoenix so much more. For the Thunder side of the trade, I get it, but I'm a little confused. So if we take this piece by piece, Ricky Rubio is a pretty good passer and an okay defender, but I don't know if that's the best player you want to put around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a really good, he's a point guard / shooting guard, and I think that, or a combo guard, as many people call him. He's very lanky, he's very athletic, and I think that he isn't bad as a playmaker, but he's also not the best as Chris Paul was. So I get the Ricky Rubio addition, because you're adding passing to someone who's not the best at passing, but also I think that they wanted Shai Gilgeous to really blossom and really bloom as a player, and I don't know if putting Ricky Rubio around him for the rest of his development is going to help him, because maybe he will become that next level passer. For the second piece, Kelly Oubre, I can't think off the top of my head, as I haven't done much preparation for this video shoot, but I can't think off the top of my head a small forward that is better than Kelly Oubre, on the Oklahoma City Thunder roster. So I do think that that is a good piece that they have. I think that especially having Steven Adams as your 5 or as your center, I think that it's great to have extra scoring, and Kelly Oubre definitely possesses that. I think that it's adding a little bounce, a little pep in their step, a little edge to the Oklahoma City Thunder team, because Kelly Oubre is kind of shown as a monster, as someone who's going to dunk on you, someone who's very athletic, and who can really captivate fans, but also captivate the team's attention and the teams want to play more. Or just makes the team want to play more, as I have said. Now, for the Ty Jerome and Jalen LeCue, I think that these guys are both pretty good point guards or shooting guards. I think that they were. I haven't seen much about Jalen McHugh, I gotta be honest. I know he's about a 68 overall in NBA 2K20. So take with that what you will. But I think Ty Jerome is actually a really good player. I don't know how much he's going to do in the league, just because a lot of his one reason why he progressed so much was actually because he was part of that Virginia basketball team, and that was number 1 in the country. So I think that his draft stock raised because of that. But I think that Ty Jerome is a nice guy, and he's very young, or he's not super young, but he's young, where the Thunder could build around him. Not build around him, but build with him and mentor him to be a great player in the NBA. And I think that Jalen McHugh is more of a project, but I also think that's good for the Thunder, just because they are trying to play for the future. They're not establishing a core right now. They're just trying to put some pieces together to see what they have, so they can evaluate it later. And then the first round pick, as I said, just helps them, as they got in the Jazz Schroeder trade. It just helps them for future assets, whether they want to keep that pick and keep that core. The draft pick is 2022, so it would take a long time. So I would probably predict that if they were advancing and they had gone to the playoffs as a top 5 seed, I think that they would probably try to create a blockbuster trade to actually excel to the top of the Western Conference. So I think that they're kind of stacking up assets just so they can have that push over the top. So I really like the first round pick addition. But I don't know if the Suns won this trade, just because I know the Ricky Rubio mostly had to do with the contracts, but I don't know how many of the players are really going to sustain in the OKC Thunder. I don't know Kelly Oubre's contract situation off the top of my head, but I don't think it's super friendly. I think it's over 12 or 13 million, which I'm not saying he's not worth, but also you don't really necessarily need him when you have someone like Lou Dort, who you are trying to progress as a player. So that was my takes on the Oklahoma City Thunder trade. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the draft. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my video today. I'm not doing a lot on the draft because during quarantine I was slacking off a bit and I didn't really focus on the draft, but next year I will do better. So maybe I'll even do a draft reaction later in the week. So drop a comment, drop a like, drop a comment down below of what your favorite part of the video was and who you think won each trade. See you guys. Bye.